Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We did some things together. So I worked in the investment services field for about 16, 17 years. Uh,
Okay.
Lived in New York City, fresh out when I was coming out of college. And even when I was in college, Colin and I, we started an investment group at Fisk where we did a lot of, we were trying to do more investing, but it was like our
Mhm.
senior year and we didn't have time to get everything structured as far as,
Right.
tax ID number and all that kind of stuff. So we just brought in investment professionals to do more education.
Okay.
So that was good. So we hosted, what was it, about 5, 6 seminars on just like
Right.
financial literacy, investing, basics kind of thing, just so people can be more aware and informed about that kind of stuff. When you're
Mhm.
coming out of college, you want to, because that's a good time when you first start making money. So from there, like I said, I worked in New York City for a while in the investment services industry, and I moved down here to Atlanta in 2008. And currently, I'm a financial advisor with a firm called Capstone Financial.
I heard of Capstone.
Yeah, and so what we do, I specialize in holistic financial planning and work with individuals, families, and businesses to do their financial planning.
Awesome.
And so one of the things that Colin I've done with about 2 or 3 times with his students is, I'll do like we're doing now, and then they'll just like a Q&A. So I found that to be very informative because I don't want to start talking to them about, something I might think is important, but they ask me questions about things that's important to them. And then we just kind of address it from that standpoint.
Very good.
So we've done that. How many times we do it? 2 times, 3 times, Kyle? I think
Yeah,
it's
maybe
twice.
maybe 2 or 3 times. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think 3 times now.
Yeah,
Now that-
yeah. So, and so, I do a lot of seminars here in Atlanta, try to talk to as many people as possible, just
Okay.
about the basics of investing and the importance of having a financial plan and working with someone that is licensed and credible,
Mhm.
and that can help you figure out what you want to do with your finances.
Very good. I have a question in regards to that. Now, if
Okay,
you
now, Kaida, before we go into, are we connected to FB? Are we connected?
I have it recorded. I wasn't able to find out how
Okay.
to connect it to FB, but
Okay.
what I can do is
Okay.
save it, save the
Mhm.
recording, and then post it to Facebook.
Okay.
Now, as far as the live part, I know that
Yes.
affects, the live. I just haven't been able to figure that out. I went into features
Mhm.
and do it. So I got to practice with it, man. Figure out what's going on.
Okay.
The
Is
feature,
there
right?
is there maybe a link that other people can maybe post it or maybe post to?
Actually, we can use the link that I have posted in the Google Calendar,
Okay.
right? I have it. Yeah, I have the link where it says find your local number, the Zoom URL.
Yes.
That's a link that we can post on our social
Might,
media.
because I might post it on mine, and then people that come in, we'll just mute them. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. So that's what
Yeah.
that's what I'm gonna do. That's the
Okay.
way we can circumvent that for the time being, for the sake of time.
Correct.
Okay.
Cool.
My question, Steve, and
Yeah.
to you, Kyle, is I know you've heard of John Henry. Have you heard of you know who John Henry is, right? Who started that investment group with his colleagues and stuff like that?
Yeah, I know who John is.
Okay. John Henrik?
John Henry.
Henry? No, I'm not familiar with him.
He's the young man who started an investment group in Harlem, as a matter of fact. Had
Okay.
capitalists and things of that nature. Maybe I should get a link or whatever. But my question initially was, I can't hear you, Kyle. You're muted.
I hear echo in your background. Or I don't know if it's Steve,
Background.
that's your background. Yeah, echo. Yeah.
All right, do you hear? How about now? Is it my
Much
background?
better.
Okay, so that's what it was.
Better.
The question that I'm bringing up, Steve, and for you, Kyle, is it's interesting how you came up in your senior year with this financial template or agenda. and how John Henry was be successful in the same, I think, venture. But Steve doesn't know who John Henry is, so I'm not sure. He's a man. If I can give you a link, I'll probably give you a link. But anyway, forget that. Anyway, we're going to
Okay.
that question. All right. So, how do you want to leave this, Kyle? I'm flowing with you.
You on mute, Kyle.
Yeah. Thanks. All right. Thank you. So yeah, I want to cut down on like the echo and whatnot. So yeah, Steve. So in reference of like why we brought you on here for the Grand Rise Collective podcast, just to give the people who are watching, thank you for watching, thank you for tuning in. This is the Grand Rising podcast. We are here to not only inform you but engage you and empower you. So, well, me, myself, Kaede, we've come together as professionals, as Black men, as educators, entrepreneurs, philanthropists, activists in the community, and being able to not only talk to you all about certain things, but bring people in who have expertise in certain fields and industries to get all insight on how to live our lives better, how to be better. So Grand Rising Collective, Grand Rising, the term meaning like good morning, Grand Rising. You start the day on a great note, on a good note. You end the day on a great note, and also keeps a reminder of us to always rise to the occasion. Be grand in what you're doing, be great at what you're doing, and rise to the occasion to be your best self, excellent at all times as possible. So without further ado, my brother Steven. All right.
What up?
So in reference to what Kaide was getting at with the brother John Henry. John Henry is part of an investment group. He's based here in Harlem. Young brother, Latino descent, Afro-Latino descent. And I had a chance to meet him years ago, myself and Kaide, both. And he's a very sharp young brother, very driven, very passionate about the community and sharing financial literacy and just information on how to start a business, how to really believe in self. With you and I in college, kind of starting out on that kind of mindset, I wanted people to get an idea of just kind of where you're coming from, like how we met. I know we talked about it earlier, but just as young Black men being able to go to college, Fisk University, HBCUs, you know what I'm saying? And like how we ended up getting to like that whole financial thing and how that kind of ties into what students are going through now, as far as just like student loans, et cetera.
Yeah. Well, I think, Colin and I, we met at HBCU, which is, I think, a hotbed for Black intellectuals, all right? And something that I know that I've always been very passionate about, that I really got in touch and kind of in tune with, is economic empowerment. You know, I feel like a lot of the issues that we see in our community come from a lack of financial literacy and being economically empowered. I think that, these deficiencies that we have as a people are by design. It's not like, these things didn't just occur overnight. And, I always say that, our people are the way we are for a reason. We were, kind of conditioned to be this way. And so we were looking at what can we do to help people and to educate people. And so that's kind of how we decided to, hey, what can we do around financial literacy and economic empowerment that would help young Black educated people who are going to go out into this world to help them, become more economically empowered. And that's kind of how we got to that point of, hey, let's see what we can do to start investing. I think this was like second semester of our senior year. So we were getting ready to graduate.
Right.
So we didn't really have time to get it structured properly as far as setting up all the tax ID numbers, setting up everything with the IRS. But one of the things that we were able to do is get it established as a club within the school, so that, people who were younger than us, maybe juniors and sophomores, they could keep it going, but also bring in licensed professionals, people with their Series 7 and 66 and all that, who could come in and talk to the, put on a seminar. And that's one of the things that we were able to do. So we were able to bring in a licensed advisor, and he did about a 5 or 6 week seminar on everything from budgeting, saving, investing, asset application. You know, it was pretty good. You know, we had
Was.
materials, and I know it definitely helped people, you know, because they came into this, you know, not necessarily understanding, maybe wanting to invest. Right? I think that's what I find is that people, they're thirsting for this knowledge. You know, it's like they want to know how to invest, but they don't know the best way to go about it. So this was able to provide that information.
And Steve, I remember when we were in school, one thing that stuck out to me, one of the things that stuck out to me was that he said that not only should we invest in what you constantly buy, but also start early. And
Yeah.
one of the things that really sticks out to me, and I don't know if you remember this, he talked about Apple then as a company.
Yeah.
Apple, the two I remember were Apple and Walmart. And he was like, if you all would have invested 5 years ago or like a few years before, look how much your money would have made. You know what I'm saying? Like in reference to these companies.
And that was
now,
what, 2022 or 20 or 02, right?
Yeah.
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 So it was 18 years ago. Yeah.
18 years ago.
Yeah.
18 years ago. So when I think about that, I said, wow, it's just a lot of it. It's really us just not knowing. And we have this bad view of the stock market. Rightfully so, because there's been a lot of crimes committed, what they call white collar crimes committed as far as money laundering. Folks. And like, you know, one of our favorite films, one of our favorite films when me and Steve went to school was the Boiler Room.
Yeah.
The name of?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And we used to watch. He turned me on to it. Steven actually turned me on to it. And I was like, yo, this is a good film. That was early Vin Diesel.
Yeah.
And Giovanni Ribisi, I think it was.
That's right.
Early Ben Affleck. Nia Long was up in it. Holla Nia Long. Shout out at me if you know he's single. You know what I'm saying? like yo, it was real deal. You know, like, and that film was definitely a major as far as my understanding of things. But you know, this man right here, you know, Warren, man, he ran it. You know, like I was doing the radio thing, and he was helping. It was interesting. I was doing the radio thing, and he was co-partnering with that. And then he was mainly running the investment thing, and I was co-partnering with that. So it's just like, it was a cool flow, you know.
Absolutely.
It was a cool flow. So one question I definitely want to ask, Stephen, I know when we talk about our students and maybe some of the people that are listening or listen to this afterwards, like when we talk about like credit and like, especially what's going on right now in the stock market, right? Like how does one not only protect themselves, but is this a good time to get in? Is it a good time to just kind of wait? Like what's kind of the idea around?
I mean, I would say for that really depends on your tolerance for risk, you know, because that's something that people have to be very aware of and know, you know, like how much tolerance for risk are you able to handle? And I would also say, you know, what are your goals and what are your objectives? So if you're looking for a long-term thing like retirement, then yeah, I would definitely look, you know, you don't really worry about the short-term, you know, depending on your time horizon, right? And so if you're, you know, someone like us, you know, maybe mid to late 40s or early 40s, late 30s, then you have about 10 to 15 years before you really consider seriously retirement, right? So you might want to be able to take a leap and take a little bit more risk and to put money to work in the market now, because you know that over the long term, you know, 10, 15 years from now, the market will probably be higher now than what it is right now. So you will probably make money in, you know, depending on what you invest in, but you know, you would more than likely make money just looking at the historical performance. But if you're looking for something more short term, then you might want to just consider looking at an alternative investment that's not correlated to the stock market. And that's one thing I also say, that, you know, whatever you do, you want to make sure you're diversified and not have. So if you have $100,000 that you're looking to invest, don't put all $100,000 into the market. You know, you want to have you want to have things that are not correlated to the stock market, but can still get you returns. And one of the things that I'm really talking with people about, like my clients now, is about looking at permanent or whole life insurance as an investment vehicle because it's not correlated to the market. You can have guaranteed returns based on what you get on your illustration, and depending on the company, you might also get a dividend. So,
Okay.
some people might look at like whole life insurance as a maybe not something that is good for them, but if you have money that you want to invest and you don't want, if you're very conservative and you don't want to put this money into the market, then you might look at a whole life insurance policy as another option. Now, that's not suitable for every person. And that's one of the things where, as a licensed financial advisor, my whole thing is suitability, right? So I can't give out blanket advice to just anyone like, hey, everybody go buy Amazon or everybody go buy Apple because I don't know everyone's situation. And
Right.
so that's very reckless and I could get sued for that. So that's why I don't tell people to do that. That's why, you need to know what's your risk tolerance, what are your objectives, what's your time horizon. And then once you get that information, then you can start to figure out, okay, based on that, what's a good investment for me?
Okay.
So, right now there's a lot of volatility in the market because of the coronavirus, the oil price war between Saudi Arabia and Russia. There's just a lot, the government, they seem like they're trying to get it together now, but they should have been almost like, a month ago,
Yesterday.
6 weeks ago,
Right.
2 months
Yesterday.
ago. So, that's what we got. Like last week, we saw that crazy volatility. Thursday was one of the worst days in the last 40 years.
And could you break that down a little bit too for because dividends, like you mentioned dividends, and could you break that why the other day was the worst days as far as points? Because I know some people see it, but they don't really realize what that truly means.
Right. So leading up to it, I think you have to look at. So Thursday, the market went down over 9%. So from where it started to where it ended, it was down almost 9 or 10%. And so the only day that it was worse, single day, was Black Monday in '87 when the market was down 22%.
Right.
So in my opinion, what caused that is people looking at this coronavirus and the lack of a coordinated really intelligent response from the government. Because I don't know if you remember, but Wednesday night, Trump had a press conference and he was just all over the place. And he didn't, but before that, there were congressional hearings where this guy, Dr. Fauci, have you seen this guy? He's like he's head of some national health organization. But he basically came out in front of Congress and said, we're failing. This is horrible. We're not prepared. He was being very realistic about what's going on, and that caused a lot of panic. And then people looked to the president, the leader of the country, and he didn't inspire any hope or confidence. So then, then you also had the NBA and all the sports leagues canceling, and it was like, okay, what's going on here? No one knew what is going on. And so you already have all these, oil dropping. Some people say it might go down to $20 a barrel, so you have all these uncertainties, and people look for data in order to make informed decisions. And when you don't have enough data, then what are you going to do? And the market also has been on a bull run. So that means it's been going up and up and up every year for the last 11 years. So if you've been making money, right, you want to buy low and sell high. So what are you going to do? If you don't know, then you're just going to sell and lock in your gains, trying to get off the roller coaster because it's been up, it's been down, it's been up, it's been down. A lot of people don't have the appetite for that kind of risk.
Right.
So once again, we're talking about the risk tolerance. You really need to know that. I mean, I had a conversation with a client last week where she was okay. Come Monday, Tuesday, she wants to change her risk tolerance because people, a lot of times I find people think that they're willing to take more risk than what they really are. Like in theory, it's like, yeah, I want to make a lot of money. I want to get 30, 40% returns on my investments.
Yeah.
Well, you can do that, but you're going to take a significant amount of risk. because just as easy as that thing could go up 30, 40%, it could go right back down. And so, you have to be okay with looking at your account and being down $35,000, $40,000 in a week period, because that's what's happening in some cases, depending on people's risk tolerance. So, but yeah, to answer your question, that's why I would say it's always good to, make sure that you're properly allocated and diversified. So that way you'll have a better understanding of what works for you.
Okay, so I have a question.
Real quick, Heidi. So for family you're listening, you're checking into the Grand Rising Podcast Collective, Grand Rising Collective as a whole. You're listening to financial advisor Stephen Warren, who's been in the industry for close to 20 years, if not more so, and answering some of our questions in reference to the coronavirus and how it affects the stock market, affect financing here in America. So he's just kind of going through and giving us some solutions and giving us some insight on what's happening. All right. So if you have any comments, definitely drop some comments down below. Ask some questions so that way we can get to them in a timely manner. All right, my bad, Ty. I had to do that spiel.
Nah, that's good. That's good. I have a question. So I deal with the demographic of inner city youth, but also the community of inner cities, which realistically and honestly don't have $10,000, if that, to put in the market. So my question is, do you target that demographic, or are you targeting a demographic that has $10,000 to $20,000 to invest? Because if not, my question is, what advice, solid advice, realistic advice can you give to those in that demographic who, man, just $10, $20 that they have in their pocket, they're trying to hold on to? But being honest too, we do not, as a culture, understand about financial management, right? So we spend billions of dollars on our discretionary income on nonsense, $250 sneakers, Yeezys and stuff, when we could put that money towards investment. But why would I feel comfortable in doing that where that's an immediate return on the money I'm putting out, as opposed to investing in a stock market that has so much volatility that I might not get anything back, I have no guarantee of getting anything back, and that to some degree I realize is risk. It's the risk anyway, because the multi-million-dollar people already have the inside track on what to invest in anyway.
Well, so that's a common misconception. I think that no one has the market on good advice, right? So I think that people try to overcomplicate things. Like, you could just look at the companies that you know and see. Like, if you just invest money in Amazon or Apple or, Microsoft, you'll make good money. I mean, companies like Disney, Nike, Pepsi, they're killing it. So you don't have to, have some kind of, crystal ball or something like that. But the first part of your question, I would say, I think it really comes down to two things: budgeting and saving. I think that before you can even realistically think about investing, you need to make sure that you have a realistic budget that you can stick to, and because it's not about how much you make, it's about how much can you save, right? And then
how much can you keep, right?
Yeah, exactly. How much can you save? How much can you keep? And then what's the priority, right? So if the priority for you is, I want to make sure that I build up enough money to purchase a home, or to create generational wealth, or to do all these things, then you're going to prioritize that over buying the new sneakers or going out to eat. And so you might, say, man, whatever discretionary income I do have, I'm going to invest that, but first I need to make sure that I have a nest egg savings of anywhere from 3 to 6 months or whatever my monthly budget is. So that way I don't have to dip into my investments when a life event occurs, right? Because I'm thinking about right now, people who aren't, people who are people who are possibly facing, going without work, because of all these closures and stuff like that. right? They're going to have to use what money they have. If you know, if your job is dependent on the restaurant industry or, you know, some type of service industry that's been shut down, there's no guarantee that you're going to get money. So you need to have that savings. And the last thing you want to do is have your money in an investment. Like right now would be a horrible time if you needed to pull out money from your stocks in order to live, because the market has been down last week. It was down like 17%. So now you would be taking a huge hit if you just had to pull money out because you need to feed yourself or pay your rent. But if you could wait until it goes back up, then, you know, you would be better off doing that. So my point is, you know, you need to have a savings nest egg. One of the things that the average person could do, and that I do work with clients on this, is what's called dollar cost averaging.
Okay.
So you can take $50, $100 a month and put it into a structured portfolio, as long as it's consistent, right? And then you can build up your account that way. So you don't need to have thousands and thousands of dollars in cash just sitting there waiting to invest. You could do $50 to $100 a month and just add your portfolio that way, almost like someone might do for their 401k at their job. You can open up a brokerage account and do it that way and just contribute money in, have a properly allocated portfolio of various mutual funds or stocks, and then just invest every month in that way. And that's a really good way to invest. So that way you can kind of take advantage of the dips in the market when it goes like this week. You know, you could take advantage, buy things at a 15, 20% discount versus putting all your money in at one time.
Thank you. See, that's a realistic approach, because we do take, you know, we spend $20, $50 easily with no problem, like you mentioned, and that's
absolutely.
The challenge is, though, a lot of those in the community don't have access to financial advisors or financial advisors who would offer that information and let them know that they can put their money in this sort of account, charges a fee that they can't afford, you know, whatever that fee may be. And that's, I think, what contributes to the apprehension of actually doing that. The other thing is, for the inner city community and for youth in the inner city, they don't have any courses on financial management. They don't realize the importance of prioritizing finances. That's totally lost on them. So you have those two big challenges and barriers that hinder that process.
And that's by design, you know, and that's because the African Americans are the largest consumers in, I would say, in the world. You know, I think that we have an integral part in keeping the American economy going. Because if you look at other communities, even within this country, the United States has the strongest economy in the world, right? We, African Americans spend the most on average, you know, as far as what they take in versus what they spend, I would say, versus any other ethnicity. You know, we don't spend money with African American owned businesses, and we don't save money. If you look at the wealth gap, it's staggering, and it's really a crisis. It's like a pandemic, like coronavirus, but it's only affecting us. You know, it's like the average African American family has $11,000 in savings versus other communities, you know, 10 times that, and it's trending towards zero in the next 25, 30 years. So we really have to do a better job of not being consumers, right? We don't have to go out and buy, you know, try to cover up our insecurities or whatever, you know, with
20 rolls of toilet paper, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, you know, or buying 500 pairs of jeans, you know, buying truly, you know, stop being slaves to these brands that won't hire you, right? Because I guaranteed if you tried to go to Gucci and say, oh, I want a job, you're going to get kicked out. If you try to go to Balenciaga or any of these other big fashion designers or any of these other companies, you know, we need to start, you know, holding these companies accountable and only doing with businesses that want to do business with us.
Right.
You know, Nike should have youth academies all over as much money as Black folks put into Nike, right?
Right.
You know, who do you think's out here buying all these $300 or $400 shoes? It's people in our community.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have to change that. It's something like behavioral finance. You know, we have to change that and get away from, you know, hey, maybe instead of the $350 shoes, I buy the $50 shoes and then put $250 into my investment account. You know, and buy some stock in Nike or buy some stock in Apple. You know, instead of buying the $1,500 phone, let me buy some Apple stock and then rock with the phone that I already have. You know, yeah, it might be a little busted up, it might be a 7 or 8, but it still works. You know, so that's what I was talking about before, as far as like making it a priority. I was having this conversation a couple weeks ago with a young man, and he kind of asked a similar question. It's like, at the end of the day, you're only going to do what's most important to you, right? Like, we all made an effort to be here on Zoom having this conversation right now because it was important to us. We made it a priority. And I feel like people can do those things. They can do whatever they kind of set their mind to. So if we say, hey, you know what, I'm going to figure this out. You know, there's a website called Investopedia. It's
Right. That's a great website, by the way.
Yeah, great. I mean, it's an excellent resource. You know, you can learn anything you want to learn about investing on this website. Industry professionals use it all the time. I mean, literally, it's a glossary. They have courses, and it's free.
This is it's free, and this is the first time I'm hearing about it. That's what I'm saying.
All right. I didn't know about it. I didn't know about it till he mentioned it to my students. I didn't know.
Yeah.
And it is a great learning.
So it's like, you know, but this stuff is kind of kept from us because, you know, they don't want us to have this knowledge. Because then if we stop putting money into this pyramid scheme of an economy, right, then who else is going to do it? Like, no, we need to take our power back, which is our money, stop giving it away to these corporations that don't care about us, won't hire us, you know, don't invest in us in any way, but yet we giving them all our money. We need to take that back and become owners and not consumers. And I think that's what's really missing, you know, from our community. I guarantee you, if we had a generation of folks that said, you know what, we're not going to worry about driving the latest car or having the latest shoe. We're going to set up our finances almost like you're building a home, right? We're going to make sure we have life insurance. We're going to make sure we have trust and wills and a Roth IRA account and all these different investment vehicles, and really structure our finances the way that they should be. We would have so much more power in this country.
I agree with that, and that's right on point.
Yeah.
One of the things I think is lost in its translation is the fact that we've been indoctrinated this way, right? So, Steve, you, Kyle, myself, a few others, we have been blessed or fortunate, whatever you want to call it, to have had people in our lives based on our personality as well, to think logically about certain things and do things. But there are a lot of people in our demographic who grow up in an environment that's dysfunctional, right? And I think somewhere along the lines, we have to tailor a strategy to target those, because that's where the masses are. To try and deprogram, which is what I'm reading the Willie Lynch. I'm, reading the Lynch program. Dr. Joy DeGruy on the slave syndrome. All this.
Yeah.
What needs to happen is a deprogramming of what we've been programming to think all our lives is that poverty mentality, in order to get us to the point where we can start taking advantage of the advice that you're giving us. Because right now that stuff is going in one ear and out the other because we can't relate to it. We don't understand that. We don't connect to it. And we have to figure out how to make that connection. And that's where I feel, because the advice is there. Like you said, you brought them, I can look at it, I can take it. But some other kids that I'm talking to, or some women in the community, that's foreign to them. They don't get it. And I think that's part of what the problem is that we have to address. Because we could give them this information right now and they wouldn't know what to do.
And Steve, let me add to your point too, Kayode. Like, Steve, I think we talked about this when we were in undergrad and as we became adults too. I think a lot of it comes in the scheme of things too, Kayode. And we've talked about this on a small scale and throughout, that a lot of our people don't feel like they have a vested interest in this country due to historical reasons. You know what I'm saying? Due to historical cultural reasons, like not feeling like, you know, they're second-class citizens, not feeling like they're valid, not feeling like, you know, they have any stake in this country or their own lives, you know? So I think it's very important for us to keep mentioning that, because the fact that we've tried to do certain things, but there have been people that have been staunchly against it, that have been always like, you know, you can't do this, you're black, you can't do this. And literally, like, not just in words, but in actions, like, you know, hurting people, murdering people, showing violence against people. Like, we've tried to establish businesses when we have, and we've tried to do more of those, but there have been people that have stood in our way and prevented us from doing that. We've been investing in things that give us back our return. Like, you're buying those Jordans, which is cool. I like Jordans too. But if you're buying more Jordans and not buying more of Nike stock, the people that make the Jordans, then you're missing out. You're missing out on profit that you get back. So think about you buying some sneakers where you're spending $300. Maybe take $250 of those dollars, still buy some Nikes, but spend $50 on the Nikes and put the $250 into the Nike company. Or you get to a point where you put $300 on the Jordans and you put $300 into the Nike stock. So not only are you buying your own product, but you're reinvesting in the company that you're putting money into. So Steve was just talking about those kind of basic principles in reference of how we support these companies, but these companies don't support us as African Americans, people of color. And we have to be very mindful of that where we put our money. We have some of the most global effects of spending power, if you want to call it that. Some people don't see power, but where we put our money is very important.
Yeah, no, just to add to that, you know, it's like money, I read a saying that said, who you give your money to is who you give your power to, right? And if you look at if you look at this country as a nation, we would have the GDP, which is like how they figure out like the total economy of a country, like it's called gross domestic product, right? Ours would be like top 15, top 20 in the whole world.
Wow.
We're talking about over $4 trillion.
$4 trillion?
Yeah.
Not billion, family, trillion with the T. You know what I'm saying? Like,
so that's a lot of power. Think about that. Of all the countries in the world, black people in America, if we took just, you know, all the money that we have, we would be top 15, 20. So we have a lot of power that we're not accessing. We're just giving it away. And to Kyle's point, you need to do research on these companies and figure out, who am I giving my money to? You know, are these, you know, people who have my community's best interest at heart, my best interest at heart? Are these people taking this money and then giving it to Trump or something crazy? Because I guarantee you it is. You would be very shocked and surprised, and that might change your buying decisions. You know, like I remember it was about a year or so ago when all these fashion designers were coming out with all these, you know, racist designs and monkeys and all that.
Montclair.
Yeah,
Montclair's one of them.
Yeah, so I mean, like, you have to realize these people that are running these companies, they don't respect you. They don't care about you in any way. They don't respect you, but yet you're lining up to give them your hard-earned money. For what? You know? And so those are the types of decisions that we have to start making. You know, it's like, let's stop, you know, trying to figure out, well, what's cool, what's hip, what's trendy, who's supporting my community, who can my family member go and get a job from this company? That's the company that I need to be supporting. What company is responsible in how they do business, right? What company is not only investing in me, but my community? Those are the companies that we set. And if we can't find these companies, then let's create them. You see what I'm saying? And let's own them ourselves. Instead of, you know, lining up. Like, there should be 10 to 15 black-owned sneaker companies. You know what I'm saying? Like, as much sneakers as black people buy, why are we still giving Nike all of our money? Because I guarantee you, if Nike was a black-owned company, do you think that all these other folks would be lining up to buy Nike like this?
No.
So, you know.
Questionable. Yeah, it is questionable.
Well, just explore that and dissect that a little further, because, like I said, this makes complete sense, total sense. But yes, we just do some introspection and as well as outside evaluation. You had a situation that related to Nike to some degree, but with Colin Kaepernick, right? And the boycotting of the NFL, right? And about bringing attention to police brutality and us coming together. Just us coming together. We're not even talking about investment. We're just talking about the mindset. And here it is, not even 2 years later, probably a year and a half later, that I heard, and I mentioned this to you, Cal, in our previous conversation, that the Super Bowl numbers went right back up to where they were before. So those who were boycotting, they didn't change their policy. He's still not playing football. Thank God he got an endorsement deal with the case. But what change really been made? We can't even muster up enough, like we did back with the boycott of the bus boycott with Rosa Parks. We still can't even make enough to make a dent in the NFL. We still giving them back their money and their numbers already to the point that you make. So what does that say about us as a community? If we don't respect ourselves as a community, right? We don't respect our own culture. Why should any other culture respect us?
Yeah.
And that's blatant in your face right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a big part of that is, how do you handle money? You know, I went to a thing here in Atlanta. I'm currently at this place right outside. Before I had to switch because my charger died and it wasn't working, so I'm sitting in my car now. But there's this place called the Gathering Spot in Atlanta, where a lot of people go. It's like a social club / WeWork kind of thing. But they had an event here with the American Jewish community and the Black community. They were doing like a talk about the American-Jewish relationship. And what really struck me is just learning about how few Jewish people there are in the world, but yet how much, if you think about how much they control. And it's because they understand how money works. And they use it to their advantage.
Exactly.
Now, do you think that they're going to respect other people and other cultures who don't do that? Of course not. They're going to take advantage of that. And that's what's been happening for, hundreds of years. So it's like we have to, it's on us, doing that. So it's on you to take that responsibility to educate yourself about these things, because they want you to keep you in that consumer mind state where you're not making money for yourself, you're only spending money, and you're just giving all your money away to these corporations that, they give you enough money to give it right back to them, I mean, especially if you think about these, like the professional athletes. I'm not trying to pick on anybody here, but
No, not at all.
I think the owners of these companies or these sports teams, they don't mind giving these guys hundreds of millions of dollars because they know they're not going to do anything of real significance or power with it. Where they're going to go out and they invest in all the companies that make so they go out and buy a fancy home. Well, you can, get stock in the company that owns the home. You can, buy the luxury brands, so you can basically get your money back. All you're doing is just investing in yourself, really. If you think about it, if you're an owner or some billionaire owner and you give this guy $100 million, but he's going to go out and spend probably 95% of it with companies that you might own, then what are you really doing? You're just, you're just giving that money right back, and you're getting a service from this person.
And to add to that, Steve, from what I understand, with a lot of these contracts, they have within fine print that they're not even allowed to make certain investments in certain things that's going to benefit the inner city community or their culture. They run the risk of, if they do make or take these political decisions that deal in reference to leveraging the economic base of one's own culture, particularly Blacks, that they run the risk of losing that contract or that income in general, which then puts in their minds psychologically and subconsciously, they're restrained as to what they can do anyway, even if they are thinking along those lines. I have people in their circle thinking along those lines.
Well, it's that, and then they also have, basically people who don't have the same background or culture as them, advising them on what to do. And they tell them, hey man, you're special, you're different, You've made it.
Mm.
You don't want to be around those guys because all they're going to do is bring you down. They're going to have a handout. They're going to want, but they're not going to give.
Mm.
What are they bringing to the table?
Right.
That kind of mentality instead of, having somebody like me or you advising them and saying, hey, man, you're in a position of power now, but not only can you change your family's generation, your family's trajectory for generations to come, but you could empower this whole community. You can get 4 or 5 guys that, in a similar situation, all y'all came from the same neighborhood, came from the same city. Y'all could link up and do something powerful that could really change this city. I mean, if you look at what LeBron James did in Cleveland and Akron with
Yeah,
starting
man.
a school, I mean, that's powerful. You know what I'm saying? That's a powerful legacy. But that's only one man. So imagine if, a football team has 52, 53 guys on it. I mean, how many guys are them from Miami or, so you could, there's real things that could be done, but the mindset isn't there. The mindset is more of, I got mine, I'm going to get mine, and I'm not trying to help nobody else. Not necessarily they don't want to. Maybe the people who are advising them, they're okay with them going out and blowing all their money, without pulling them to the side saying, look, man, you're about to go broke. And when you're 50, what are you going to do?
Right.
Because you can't play football, and you're probably going to be broken up because you got all these injuries. So what are you going to do? So, they don't necessarily have the most trusted advisors around them that have their best interests. It's more of, what can I get from this person? Because I know he doesn't understand investing. He doesn't know his budget. And I could steal money from this guy. And that happens a lot.
And to add to that point, we also have to keep in mind the person who's actually coming to this money never had that kind of money before.
No.
Right? So they're coming from an impoverished background.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, they're crazy like a child. If you keep a child, in the house all day and you don't allow them to experience life, when they get out to college, then they running amok and they're going crazy and stuff. And before they realize that they already spent that money, they already got injured. So now they can't even do anything because they squandered that opportunity that they did have. So these are a lot of complexity personalities that we deal with, and how to, like you said, Steve, manage money, and realize the importance of money, that money is power, and where we're giving our power to in the form of money. Very
absolutely.
Good.
Yeah.
Good point.
I mean, in capitalist society, man, money is power. And so you really have to understand how money works and how you can make it work for yourself. And, that's where the budgeting and the saving is integral. It's like the foundation. If you're looking to build a house, I use this analogy a lot, but like your financial home, your budget and your savings plan has to be the foundation. And so then you can add from that, but that's the most important part. And the hardest part of doing that is changing your mindset. Like saying like, look, I'm gonna sacrifice on this. I'm gonna prioritize this over that.
Right. And Steve, just like I mentioned when we talked last time, it's like that old Nas saying from the Illmatic album, the bottle could have struck the lotto. You know what I'm saying? It's that mindset change. You know what I'm saying? Like it's really that simple, but it is difficult because when I start to go into money beliefs, when I start reading certain books like Great Minds, The Power of Thinking Big, the Millionaire Next Door, the Millionaire Mindset, they talk about what are your true beliefs behind money, because a lot of people feel like if they're rich, that means that they're evil. It's a sin. A lot of us have been educated in our households and in our communities that if you're rich, you must have done something really wrong. You committed some type of sin or atrocity in order to get the riches. Because if it was that easy, everybody would do it. But it's like, no, you don't realize that you have to break past certain challenges and certain difficulties to be able to even get to that type of financial status. It's not to say you're not rich in your heart, but if you're not living up to your full potential, then how are you living? It's like
No, I think one of the main things that money is just a tool, right? It can be used for greatness to make good things happen, or it can be used for evil. But it just depends on who has the money.
Right.
And so, either way, you know, you can't really say, oh, like you can't demonize somebody who has money or things like that. It's like, no, like you should hopefully, you know, you might not be able to get as much money as Warren Buffett, but if you do certain things, then you too can have this, right? You might have to make a lot of sacrifices and prioritize things over, you know, maybe don't go on vacations, you know, 3 or 4 times a year. Maybe, you know, you don't go out to eat every weekend or something like that. But, you know, you have to figure what works for you and then, you know, make it happen. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think we definitely have a lot of unpacked trauma. When I say we, I'm talking about African Americans.
Absolutely.
I've just noticed that working with different people and families. Like a lot of times we don't talk about this stuff. We don't have these money conversations when it comes to families that people in other cultures have. You know, like I've been meeting with a mom and her daughter, and the mom is telling me, you know, she's living with the daughter and she has money that she wants to invest. But then when the daughter gets up and leaves, she's like, well, don't tell the daughter I got another, you know, stack of money over here that I don't tell her about. And it's like, that's a common thing that I'm finding where people don't want to, you know, have these kind of, it's almost like taboo to talk
Yeah,
about how
man.
much money do you
Yeah.
have. So, you know, we have to get out of that. And then we also, you know, there's a lot of trust. If you look at going back to the Freedmen's Bureau, right? When black folks coming out of Reconstruction.
Talk about that. We
they
talked
had
about that
money.
last podcast. Talk about
Yeah,
that.
you know, and how money was stolen from us, right? That's why you find people who don't necessarily trust banks and all these other institutions because of historical things that have happened. You know, you look at was it the place out in Oklahoma City,
Yeah, Greenwood.
yeah,
Yeah,
Greenwood.
also
You're right,
known
right,
Black Wall Street.
Greenwood. You
Yeah.
know, where, you know, black businesses were literally burned to the ground. So,
Yeah.
you know, every time we've had these kind of systematic oppressive things happen to black folks around money, that is unpacked trauma. So we have to deal with that. And then we have to also educate ourselves on what it takes because they don't teach financial literacy in school. I mean,
Right.
they'll teach you about
Money
Shakespeare
management,
and a whole
financial
bunch of
literacy.
other crap that like, who cares? Like, that was 1,000 years. I don't care about any of that. Teach me
Right.
how to avoid, you know, going and having bad credit. Teach me how to have
Right.
a
Student
budget.
loans.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Teach me how to file my taxes so that I'm getting money back where I'm not paying anything. You know, these are all the
Right.
different things that the average person needs to know, but that's not taught in school. And you think about, well, why is that? Because there's a whole economy around keeping you dumb and keeping you, you know, paying money out. Yeah. So, but it's up to you to kind of break through that, you know, and you have to. It's almost like the Matrix, right? You know, you gotta unplug from what's really going on. That paradigm, that box that they want us to be in, right? You know, the Black American box of I'm gonna be a consumer. I'm gonna buy this shoe. I'm gonna wear this clothing brand. I'm gonna drive this car, and this is my goal in life is to be this type of person. No, I need to break out of that and look at have a different perspective on things and see that, you know, I can attain these things without killing somebody, without, you know, selling drugs or, you know, like, no, I can achieve all these things without creating some without committing some great sin by doing, you know, some
Right, man.
they're not easy, but they're simple.
Right.
Kind of steps. That makes sense.
Right. I'll tell you, I'll interject real quick, Kyle. Like when Steve was talking about, like, when we were in school, and I don't say this a lot, but he remembers because he was there. He saw it all. I was selling muffins out of my house.
Oh, man, the Muffin Man. I think Kyle was sprinkling crack on those muffins, man. He had people knocking on the door like 4 a.m, scratching like, I need some muffins, baby.
Oh man, yo, it was real. It was real, man. It was real. I mean, not the crack. I don't do no drugs. Nah. Only drug I was pushing was sugar. That was it. Sugar, processed sugar. That was it. But like he saw it. Like he saw it because I would get the muffins, the place where I did my work study, and I would bring them back to the door. dorm, and I'm like, I could have charged way more. Like he even mentioned, like, yo, you could charge like $2. They were big. They were like the big Sam's Club, like Costco type joints.
Mm.
And I was like, nah, man, I just want to make a little money in my pocket. I know cats is hurting. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what he's talking about. Like, I could have charged way more than I did. But I was like, nah, I just want a little money to have in my pocket because I had a girlfriend at the time. And I want to sure, like, cats got snacks because sometimes the machine would run out, So that just goes back to that mentality. I wasn't trying to, like, scam folks. I wasn't trying to get over like a fat rat. Like, like even when even Steve being down in Atlanta, the billionaire Robert Smith, who all that money for those graduates of Morehouse, and then other people chimed in and started giving money, like the Spellman. Like that's phenomenal. Like that is amazing.
Yeah.
He's saying that generationally speaking, I'm gonna set you up where hopefully you do this for your peers coming down, or for your family members. This kind of frees up your family members to invest in businesses, to put it in stocks, put it in real estate. You know what I'm saying? Like, or just really create a saving, like a what do you call, like a treasury for your family.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's key. That's important.
Yeah.
But what tied into that is that and then we're going to go, because I know probably Steve is busy, and we want to get some tangibles from you, Steve. We want to get
definitely.
actual action steps.
Yeah, call to action.
Video.
So family, again, as you're watching this, make sure you put your comments down below, right? If you have any questions during the feed or after the feeds, because if you're not listening live, we can come back to them and answer your questions. You know what I'm saying? This is a good brother right here who's been in the field for over 20 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's on the ground doing grassroots work, working with the youth, working the community out in Atlanta. So you definitely need to holler at this brother. All right?
Absolutely. So the point to that is, when he was giving the money to the family so that they can use that extra money to invest in things of that nature, part of it goes back to the same thing. Do they realize that? You know what I mean? This isn't just money that he's paying to take off one expense from you so that way you can buy extra Yeezys or extra sneakers. No, this is money specifically for you to invest in your future, for you to realize your power that we have as a community to change things in the dynamic. I think that if he's not doing that already, I haven't been following it closely. I will look into it more. But that message has to be a part of that training. This is what this is for. The reason why I'm paying this is for you to take that you have, that you don't have to put to this expense, and put it into investment vehicles that will benefit you and your family for the long haul. I think that has to be a part of that conversation. If it's not happening already, I think that's important. That's the only thing I want to interject with that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, man. And what I've seen is that we're getting there. I feel like, the awareness about, and I think, like, people have this thirst for knowledge, right? And people are becoming more and more aware. It's almost like a tide, right? I feel like the tide is starting to shift and change, where people are, just because there's more information out there. You have, 24-hour news channels dedicated to investing. You have apps like, was it Robinhood or
Acorn, that's what I'm gonna,
and all
Stash,
that.
Acorn. Stash,
So
Acorn.
I think that people are looking for that knowledge, right? So people understand, and like, hey, this is something I can do to help myself and my financial situation. But where we need to really make sure that you are linking up with a licensed professional who, to Kyle's point, is not trying to get over on you, not trying to scam you, and is taking a fiduciary responsibility. And so that's where that might require a little legwork, a little networking to find the right person for that.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you that there's an organization called Quad A, and that's the Association of African American Advisors.
Thank
you. Quad, like Quad A.
And Quad A.
Yeah, that's the American Association of, or the Association of African American Advisors. And so that's a nationwide organization.
Put that link down below for sure.
Advisors from all over the country. And so I think that would be a great place to start. Say, hey, I want to, do this. It's just like any other thing. Like, it takes certain people to step up and to take leadership roles to bring this information to the community, but it's needed. You know, I mean, just as much as we have all these other things going on, you know, we need to learn about this even more importantly, because once again, if you look at the trends on the wealth gap between Black folks and other people in this country, other people's numbers are trending up. I say like the white community, the Asian, the Indian community, they're trending up. Ours is trending down. So they're projecting by like 2050, the average Black family will have no money in savings. And right now we have 11,000, which is basically a month or two of saving.
Right.
Right.
And Steve, real quick, because we talked about this last podcast, and people can look at the older episodes on YouTube. What is the poverty line, or what is the average poverty line in America? Because I read a book called The Rich and the Rest of Us by Tavis Smiley and Cornel West, and he was saying like 47% of America in general, Black and white, or any other ethnicities, 1 in 2 people are below or near the poverty line. And I don't know, did you know the average poverty line of 20
you know,
I thought it was 20 now.
I think it's a little bit higher than that. I don't want to say maybe like 30, but yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that when people talk about, oh, this great economy and all the jobs that are being, you know, or, you know, all these jobs, you know, unemployment rate, a lot of people are what they call underemployed, where they're, you know, they're employed, but they're not making enough money to meet their needs, you know. Now, that has a lot to do, some of that has to do with training. You know, maybe people don't have the training that they need to get the high paying jobs that are available. A lot of that is with IT. I would say, you know, we really need to lean into that. I think as a people, you know, we're very underrepresented in the IT space as a whole, when there's not as many barriers to entry as there is to going out and getting, like, you don't necessarily have to have a college degree. You could go do some online certification classes, get some type of certification, and then you can get you a job making $50,000-$60,000 a year, which is pretty good money. You know, it then leads back to, okay, now that I'm making more money than I was before, making 35, 40, 50, if I'm making 75 to 80, and because I got this certification, now I can invest. Now I can, you know, invest in real estate. I can, you know, start to invest in the stock market and do all these other things. So it's all kind of related, you know, where if you get the higher paying jobs and you have more money to invest, well, then you can do more. I don't know if that answers your question there, Kyle, as far as the poverty line. I'm not exactly sure where it is, but, you know, I would definitely, I could see that just because of all of the different, you know, most of the jobs that people have, you know, they're not paying folks, you know, $80,000, $90,000 a year, you know.
Right.
Okay. I have 2 things I want to add before, Steve, you know, we get the final the tangibles, the action steps from you. I just typed in something in the chat. And this is what I was talking about in our last discussion, Kyle, that we had in regards to the circulation of money that we were talking about, Steve, that you brought up in regards to the community. I found this a very interesting fact or statistic where it says in the Asian community, money circulates 27 days. And this is what I was bringing up to you, Kyle, in our series of conversations in regards to the difference between a neighborhood and a community. Whereas we as Blacks live in a neighborhood, but we don't live in a community, and people are trying to change that because they don't know the difference. So that's the interesting fact or statistic I wanted to bring up with regards to that, Steve, in regards to 27 days in the Asian community, 19 days in Jewish, 17 days in WASP, 7 days in Latino, and in our community, 7 hours.
Trying to give you all practical, tangible. We're trying to give you some tangible things, but we're also trying to give you some things that kind of give you a breath, like a widespread thing of like why these things are occurring, like why we have this type of mentality, like where we're pulling all this information from. So we're giving you that kind of like that background info to kind of make it a little bit more real for you, because even within our families, like we struggle. Like I struggle with student loans for years, and when you talk about like finances and being able to do other stuff, like I was one of those cats living close to the poverty line, if not on the poverty line, like for real. And I had a degree. And it got to a point where I had to figure out, okay, how do I get myself out of this scenario? I put myself into this. How do I get myself out?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it was just kind of having to sacrifice some things. Like, it was kind of like, oh, well, I'm gonna just kind of live in this state and everything's gonna work itself out. And yeah, I had that mentality, but you gotta make it. You gotta really, it's not like it's just gonna happen out of the blue sky. It's not just like it's gonna happen just one day. Like, you gotta be intent and say, okay, I'm in this hole. How do I help dig myself out? You don't have to dig yourself out by yourself. You can get people like Steve or like other financial folks, somebody at your local bank, somebody at your credit union, maybe somebody in your family who knows finances to help get you out of that situation. Now, it's not gonna be fun. It might be totally fun, but it's gonna relieve so much stress from you. It's gonna make you get into the mindset of, oh, this isn't as bad as it was, because every day I'm working on getting myself out of the situation. You know what I'm saying? So you sitting around and thinking about it all day, that's just called worry and stress. And it's just breaking down your quality of life and your health. I did a video on that too, quality of life and health. So it's really up to you to really like get involved, because money is one of those things that if you don't get control of it, it's definitely gonna control you. And you're not gonna have even enough of it to be used as a tool. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just opens you up. It's like getting a degree which you can use, have money which you know how to use. It frees up so many things for you. You know what I'm saying? It's not the fact that because you have a lot of money, like, you know, more than you can spend. It's not to say that, oh, I got a lot of money, look at me. It's to say, wow, look how much more of my life is quality. How much better am I living due to having access to money or access to resources where I can say, I want to go vacation over here, or do I want to spend all this time doing this particular task? Like, say for instance, depending if you have enough money in your bank account, you can choose whether to say, oh, I really want that phone, because this will not only be something that I like, but it'll also help with my business, rather than, man, if I put $2 here, and let's say I put $30 here, and it's like, nah, you don't have to make those decisions anymore. Like, you can choose to put your money just straight towards that and have it instantly. Right? Or if you say, look, you know, like, I really would love to take this vacation or buy these particular items, like for my house, like clothes or maybe furniture, but damn, I gotta pay my school loan. Damn, I gotta pay this bill. Or damn, I you know what I'm saying? Like, I gotta save that for transportation fee. I've been there, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm saying this because I've been in those situations. And it's not like I'm that far removed from it to remember what that felt like. So that's why I'm telling you this. It's not to downgrade anybody. If you wanna go on those lavish vacations, if you wanna buy those different color J's, LeBrons, if you want to, you know, ball out at the club or the restaurant, by all means do that. But do that when your light bill is paid, when your rent is paid, when you've invested into those companies that you buying the $200, $300, $400 belts from, Gucci, you know, Gucci, Louis. You know what I'm saying? Like, if that's what you like, cool. How you buying a $400 belt, but you have no stake in the company? Like, that's ridiculous. But that's a mindset we all have been bred to be consumers and not producers. Entrepreneurs. You know what I'm saying? So again, like, this isn't like trying to preach at y'all. This is us coming together and sharing our knowledge and sharing our experience, because we want y'all to be better, because we want to be better. So why do we want y'all to be better? You not being better, as I talk to my students and we talk to our crew, you know, if everybody got everybody, then who's slacking? No one. Like, you know, that's what Jay and Damon and were on. If no one's lacking, then we can all come to each other for not only financial support, but support, because we're all in a good mind state, because our finances are taken care of. We don't have too many things to worry about.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what did Jay say in the line? Everybody's each other's crutches. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's real. You know, and me and this brother right here grew up, you know, in school, listening to that stuff. You know what I'm saying? And we took that to heart.
I want to get your take on that, your perception on what I put in the chat, and then we want to get some action steps for you. 1, 2, what have you, share with the community. What do you think about the chat in regards to money circulating in certain communities. What are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that's like the fundamental issue, right? I think that's key, because until we can, spend money with each other, keep the money in community like it stays in other communities, then how else are we all going to be able to come up together? Because right now it does us no good to have one person in our community to have all the money, because then what do?
Right.
They leave the community, because then they become the target, you become the mark for everybody else who ain't got nothing.
Yeah,
So
the
of course
sweet Vic.
think about it. You guys are in New York City, right?
Yep.
Right.
Whenever somebody in New York City gets rich, where do they go? They go to Jersey. They get
Right. Or upstate, you know what I'm saying? Like, Jersey
Like,
upstate.
so it's like, because you can't be the only person in your community, because then it's not safe. That's just the reality of it. So we have to set up institutions and organizations and businesses that will allow us all to grow. What does that look like? Maybe some type of co-op. That I think that would be a great discussion for another show. But you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, that's key, man. And that's what I was saying before about these businesses that don't have uh, locations in our community. Like
Right.
Nike should have a factory in Harlem or in the Bronx.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? They're in Memphis and all these other DC. All these other cities. All these companies that we financially support. I don't want to keep picking on Nike, but
All right.
but it's like it's this whole concept of reciprocity, where you need to do business with people who are going to do business with you.
Right.
The company doesn't fit into that into that profile.
Mm-hmm.
If that's not something that's important to them, then you may want to reconsider doing business with that company.
Mm.
So that's where it comes down to supporting Black-owned businesses.
Right.
I think that's key, because who else is going to hire another Black person as soon, quicker, or more likely than a Black-owned business?
Mm-hmm.
And while national unemployment rates might be low, but if you look at it in our community, they're always high.
That's right.
We're running 5 to 10 times the national rate in some situations.
That's right.
So that whole concept of keeping the money in the community, supporting our own, that's the foundation of it all. Until we can get that, then that's where we have the money to do all these other things. And I think that's kind of what you were saying, Kyle, when I came back on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, the fact that we have that groundswell or that savings of capital circulating so much, gives more power and more opportunity to do other things, and be able to like take that and say, okay, well, how could we best use this? Because that's one thing we've been learned in this country for a long time, is how to make $1 out of 15 cents.
Yeah.
Instead of us having 50,000, let's what if we had 500,000. You know what I'm saying? Like, we do a lot more with less. You know what I'm saying? But we have to still keep that same mentality, in a sense, in the range of, not to say that you should be living like a poor man when you're rich, financially rich, but it's take that same mentality. If I can stretch out a whole bunch with 50,000, what 100,000?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what can I do with that? And again, it's the mentality of the person. What did Reverend Ike? I don't know if anybody's familiar with Reverend Ike. Reverend Ike was talking about, the person is a slave until he realizes he has a mind. You know what I'm saying? The person is at a disadvantage till you realize they have the mind. Your mind is your best asset. We talk about stocks and bonds, which goes historically. We can go into that for sure. But your best asset is your thinking, your mindset.
Yeah.
Something no one can take from you. That's what we taught growing up. Nobody can take your education. You can always lose a job. You can always lose money. But if you know the steps to take to become an entrepreneur, if you know the steps to become successful, they can never take that from you. And it goes to that same analogy in regards to give a man a fish, he'll eat for the day. But if you teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime, because that's what he learned, and that's how he develops and lives. All right, Steve.
And real quick, because I got to educate in me real quick. Most of the school system gives people fish and doesn't teach them how to fish. And especially when we talking about our children, those Black and brown babies, those young men and young women, they teaching them how to get fish. They giving them fish because they like, oh, well, you know, they're disadvantaged and, you know, let's give them fish. No, teach our young brothers and sisters how to fish, because if they leave that institution, they got to go back to the neighborhoods, go back to the racism. They got to go back out of society where it tells them that they're less than. But if you teach them the skill sets to be able to stand on their 2 feet, I bet you believe they're going to be competing and maybe even take your job.
Exactly. They're going to surpass that. And it goes and ties into what Steve was saying and all of us are saying in regards to why they're not teaching financial literacy courses in school. That's one of the main reasons right there, because they don't want to learn that. All right, Steve, real quick. What action steps that we covered today that the community, those who may not be in the know that can say, you already gave some good ones. You gave what was called Quan A, which was great. You also gave building a co-op in the community. So what action steps?
So yeah, man, and like he's gonna chime back in, but like, you know, what we were talking about with the youth that we work with and the people we work with, you know, not just financial literacy, but like financial education.
Financial education.
That's one thing I was thinking about this past week, was like not just financial literacy, but financial education. Because
what's the difference?
Huh?
What's the difference? Financial literacy.
Well, the difference is, well, financial literacy is the fact of you becoming aware of like the certain terms and how things are used, as far as to be able to communicate these things.
Right.
Education behind is saying, oh, here's the breadth, here's the total scenario, here's the total dynamic of why this is so and why it's important. You know, it's like teaching literacy. Like I'm teaching you to read, but am I teach you how to think on why you're even reading this? Like, why is this important that we're reading this text? You know what I'm saying? Like because our young folks can read for the most part. You know what I'm saying? There are slightly, definitely major literacy rates that are very low, but they're doing text. They're getting certain items. They're buying certain things, so they know how to read at least to a certain extent. But it's the fact that, are they comprehending in the mind of how to think? You know what I'm saying? Like why are we reading this? Why is it important to read? And how does that connect to me being prosperous in this society, or being incarcerated and being used and exploited in society? Like, how does that work?
So the difference between financial literacy and financial education is that financial education is the understanding of the comprehension behind finance, whereas financial literacy is like reading the book. You can read a book, right? And you can read the words, whatever, but you don't understand or comprehend what the book is trying to relate. You don't understand or comprehend. You just memorize it.
Correct. How does it connect? Right? How does it connect? Because, you know, we talk about our community, it's like, yeah, that stuff is all fine and dandy. That's cool. You know what I'm saying? I know those terms, but how does it connect to me and mine's? Like, how does that relate to me having enough money or investing when I don't have enough? Like I'm already like at a disadvantage because I want these things and I gotta feel like, damn man, like I gotta wait, I gotta scrape, I gotta save. Like, can I just go now? It's like, yeah, you could, but if you jump into it too early or too late, it could cause a lot of financial damage and emotional damage, because we are connected to our money through emotions. Like, let's be real here. Like, a lot of people think like money is emotionless, but we as humans connect to money with emotions. You know what I'm saying? So we have to unpack that. We have to talk about that. We have to see like where that comes from. Like, do you have good emotions with money? Do you have bad emotions with money? Like, you know, or is it the people around you that have led you to believe that certain practices with money are not cool? Like, for a long time, I felt like I was at a disadvantage because my family went through a certain financial period where it was a little it was a little rocky. So for me, it was always a feeling like, are we gonna survive or are we not? Like, my parents didn't really tell us what was going on. We just felt like, are we living paycheck to paycheck? Are we cool? Like, should I buy this shoe that's like $100, this Nike, they just came out, or should I invest or should I save? Because if we need money, I'd rather give I'd rather give you the 100 and then put it towards a bill. But it was just like this kind of like feeling of like limbo. Like, I didn't know if we was sinking, swimming, or just treading water. Like, I didn't know. For a long time, I carried that with me, like hoard money, like hoard, save. Don't invest, just save. And that was for that time period. But now we're in a point of finances, family, where they say it's to our detriment that we save up to a certain extent. Like, money actually loses value in the bank because the bank is only giving back like what 0.3% or something like that.
Right.
So I'll be straight with you. Like the money I've invested while the stock market is going down, I've actually made money.
Go ahead, Kyle.
I've lost, but again, I didn't put in money that I wasn't willing to lose too.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That's another thing about the stocks and whatever. You got to put in money that you're willing to lose.
Mm-hmm.
That could be $5. That could be $5. That could be 10. That could be 100. That could be 5,000, 10,000, 100,000. You know, whatever your risk. What Steve was talking about earlier. What's your risk?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, family, like that's
so
the conversation you have to have.
Let me touch on the situation in regards to, which was a very good point. That I think is missed in communication as well. Our emotions being tied to money. That's a very important point. Welcome back, Steve.
Yeah.
I apologize, fellas. Man.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it, brother. Don't worry. We're going to
profit a sizable amount.
We're
Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years.
All right, we're gonna try. I don't want to lose you again, man. So
go into it. I'll do that.
we were talking about how
So actionable steps. Here we go. First thing I would say is make sure you have a budget. So there's a lot of great tools like mint.com, Mint, M-I-N-T. It's owned by the same company that does QuickBooks, Intuit. So you don't have to worry about, your data. It's they do a great job with security, but it's just like a personal finance. So you don't have to use Mint, but just make sure that you have a realistic budget that you can stick to. Within that budget, you want to make sure that you are saving at least 10% of whatever your income is. On the monthly basis, you want to make sure that you're saving 10% of that and putting it into some type of, I always tell people to look at a website called NerdWallet or bankrate.com. And you can go on there and get a high yield online savings account at either a bank or institution like Goldman Sachs. They have these accounts called Marcus, where there's no minimum balance, no fee. So that means anybody can go in there and open up an account. And it's a savings account that's getting between like 1.7 and 1.8%. So it's a lot more than what you're going to get at your bank. And it's FDIC insured.
I want to go back to what we were talking about in regards to the connection or relation or emotional connection we have to money. And I think that's something that's easily overlooked in our community coming from a personal perspective. Because it ties, as it relates to me from a personal perspective, I grew up in the church, Baptist church, my fundamental foundational years. And then in my 20s, I went to what's called a word church. So
I'm not familiar with word church.
Right. So simply the difference is the Baptist church is your typical church, right?
Yeah, I know Baptist.
So I don't have to explain that. But a word church is a church that's purely based on the word. So here's the difference. In a Baptist church, one of those churches, it's one of the feel-good type lessons, right? They take one scripture, or one word out of scripture, and right, the whole preaching thing, and all that other stuff, right? Right, not giving you anything to live off of. It's not giving you just to get you emotionally
feel good,
feel good.
Yeah,
as opposed to a word church where they give you the actual word and dissect that scripture down into its bare components, where you literally break it apart.
So you had both then?
Huh?
You had both?
I had both.
Oh, that's an interesting mix right there, though. That's a dope mix right there.
And you get into it and you read the word yourself and figure it out yourself. But what blessed me to be able to be open and receptive to a word church is the fact that even though I was going to a traditional denominational church growing up, I also watched what's called a word church on TV. Some of you may know, family, some of you may know this church in particular, some of you may not. But the church is called Crenshaw Christian Center, and the minister is called Frederick Casey Price. Yes. And what Casey Price would do is he would dissect and break that word down and challenge you to read it for yourself and read it and see how it resonates with you. So I thank God I had that a part of my foundational piece. So the reason why I'm bringing that into this conversation in regards to how we're connected to money emotionally is that along the lines, Price never taught this, but in my physical realm, the Baptist church that I went to always gave that negative stigmatization to money. Whereas if you had money, like you said, money is the root of all evil. No,
Right.
but the love of money is the root of all evil. But
Yeah.
the churches would give that subliminal message that if you had a lot of money, that you were, you were evil. You know what I mean?
Fiat. You know what I'm saying? That fiat, FIAT. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So that's, I think, if we look at it and we're realistic about our community, a lot of us depended on the church to survive, and to some extent still do, and go to church on Sundays. We're still indoctrinated with that. So I think that's another reason why our viewpoint on money is somewhat skewed, and we haven't taken advantage of the information available to us today, the investments that are available to us today, because I think on a subconscious level, we associate that with that negative connotation of money. So when you brought that up, I think that's definitely a topic to explore that we should definitely give time and attention to in regards to the psychological effects money has on us through the indoctrination that we receive. Those of us who were in the church and that come from that type of belief, which is why I think that's a very important point you brought up.
Yes, and there are many different Black folks, men and women, who continue to talk about it or continue to promote the coming together of Black folks in the church, because that's one of our institutions. You know what I'm saying? That's one of our most trusted institutions. Churches are like our a foundation in our community. A lot of money flows through churches. Take the church as a financial, not just a spiritual institution, but connect that with the finances. Oh, powerful. And a lot of churches are doing that across the nation, in Black communities, where they're taking their money of their I was it parishioners, I guess, or
their congregation.
Their congregation, thank you, their congregation, and they're investing that back into the youth with scholarships and home equity investments, and building homes for the homeless and the elderly, and they're really doing a lot in affordable housing. They're doing that. So that connection and that trust that they have within the institution of the church, and into financial empowerment for their neighborhood, which is amazing. Which is a very fundamental, simple idea, but has very profound and lasting effects.
So what kind of church is doing this? This is the typical denominational church?
That I can't tell you. That I don't know. I don't know if it's like Pentecostal, Baptist, Methodist. My folks grew up Methodist. But they're doing it.
Okay.
That would be a great study. Like, what churches are the ones that are doing more of the outreach as far as building the financial resources and power to be able to do the projects that they are to build up the community and those in their congregation, as far as financial literacy, education, and empowerment. So that would be a good study to do, especially with Black churches, because we know historically they've burned down our churches. They've treated our churches as ways to indoctrinate us with lies, but it does on the other end have a lot of positive influence on what we've been able to do.
So we talked about the bank card, or bankrate.com, Nerd Wallet. One of the things I also tell people to do is just a way to generate a little extra cash that you can use towards investing is get like a one of those cashback reward credit cards, and put all of your monthly expenses, right? So if you know I'm gonna spend $500 a month on groceries, I'm gonna spend $200 a month on gas, whatever your fixed monthly expenses is, put all of those on that cashback card, pay it off at the end of the month. That's free money right there, right? That could be anywhere from $200-$300 a year, depending on how much money you put on there. You know what I'm saying? That's money you could use for an investment. So then, one of the things that everyone, when it comes to investing in stocks, I always like to tell people to look at ETFs, which means it's an exchange traded fund, and it's
ETF.
ETFs. So they look at different sectors of the economy. So you might have like a tech sector, but then you can also drill down to get more into like cloud computing or fintech or you know, cybersecurity. And so you can have an ETF that only invests in companies that are in that space. So ETFs are a good way to go when you're thinking about investing. It's because you're you're solving two issues. One is you have a diversified portfolio off the bat versus just buying one, trying to pick one stock out of like 65,000. That's tough and it's risky because you're putting all your eggs in one basket. But with the ETF, you can kind of spread out that risk through diversification. And so if there's a particular segment of the economy that you really believe in, you think is good, do a little research on the different types of ETFs that are out there, and then you can buy ETFs, and they're better than mutual funds. They're very similar in structure to a mutual fund, where they might have anywhere from 30 to 50 different stocks in this one ETF, but the fees are a lot cheaper. Mutual funds, they have a management fee associated with it. They have 12B1 fees. They have all these other kind of hidden fees that eat up your performance. It's called an expense ratio. So when you're looking at a mutual fund, look at the expense ratio, and then look at the objective of that mutual fund. Is this a large cap mutual fund that's going to invest in your big stocks, right? On the S&P 500, what is the benchmark? So every mutual fund has a benchmark that they peg their performance to based on the style or the objective of the mutual fund. Basically, the holdings of the fund is pegged to a benchmark. So a lot of times the manager of the mutual fund, his job is to provide alpha, which is performance greater than the benchmark. So if the benchmark is hitting 20%, then the manager of the fund is going to try to get you 25 or 30%, right? He's trying to get you, so that alpha is that the spread basically between what the fund is getting versus what the benchmark is performing. And so a lot of times money managers aren't able to get that alpha. They might actually underperform the market. So now you're paying a premium for something that you could have just gotten if you would have just bought the ETF, which is the benchmark or the index. So that's why I would say look at ETFs. Now there's certain mutual funds that might make sense if you have a great money manager who's able to provide that alpha and he's able to earn his fees. But 9 times out of 10, the ETF will get you where you want to be as far as performance is concerned. And still you can buy into all these great companies, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Intel, you know, all these great companies without having to take on the risk of, and also you could buy ETF for like $50 a share and own all of those companies versus trying to buy Amazon, which is like $1,700 a share. You see, so it's a good way to buy into all these great companies without having to spend as much money, and it's liquid. So I think ETFs is a great way to go for the average investor. But also go to Investopedia. I think that's a great resource. If I say before you put any money in the market, go on Investopedia, take some of the free online courses that they have. And it's just like Wikipedia or Encyclopedia, Investopedia. They have a simulation on there where they actually have a game. It's like a contest where you can put together a portfolio of investments and you pick it, and then you go against people from all over the world, and the person who gets the best return wins real money. So that's a good way to kind of sharpen your skills while you're building up your nest egg to invest. Because like I was saying before you get cut off, you want to make sure that you have, once you go on bank rate and you set up that online savings account, whichever one works best for you, you need to have 3 to 6 months of your budget, whatever it takes for you to keep the lights on, keep you fed, you and your family, keep you going, your burn rate, whatever that is. You need to have 3 to 6 months of those in that online savings account before you start to invest. And I think that'll put you at a much better place where you're not making emotional or irrational decisions because you know that you have this nest egg here, you know, this foundation to go off, and then once you have that, you're a little bit more financially stable.
Very
You're
good.
making a responsible decision.
Makes
So
sense.
that's investing in the stock market. Also, I would recommend everyone look at getting some type of whole life or permanent wealth or permanent life insurance policy, because that's
Hmm.
the easiest way to build generational wealth,
Okay.
right? And it's not correlated to the stock market, but it goes up. Like you actually, it's an asset. It has value. You can use it as collateral. You can borrow against it. If you want to invest in real estate, you can take money out of the cash value, use it to finance a real estate deal. Now you have two assets instead of one. Pay yourself back instead of paying back the bank. So there's a lot of benefits to owning a whole life or permanent life insurance policy, because it can, it's the simplest and easiest way to create generational wealth, right?
Hmm.
Let's say I have $500,000. I've accumulated $500,000. I want to pass on that $500,000 to my family, but I also want to spend some of this money as well. I
Right.
can take $300,000, get me a whole life policy for $500,000, use the other two to spend on whatever I want to do with it, and when I die, my family now has $500,000.
Mm.
You see that how I just made, and then the cash value on that policy, I could borrow against it if I need be to finance a real estate deal, put my kids through college, do whatever it is I want to do. And so it really gives you that flexibility and options. So that way, we need to really start looking at life insurance as a way to create generational wealth, because that's one. I mean, it's just reality of life, right? We're all going to pass away, so we need to prepare for it.
Right.
And GoFundMe and fish fries and all that, that's not life insurance. That we shouldn't have to resort to that
He
type of
said-
stuff
he
when somebody
said-
passes away. You know what I'm saying?
That's
Like, don't.
real, man.
And that's why somebody was joking, but like when you see white folks at a funeral home, they not, oh my God, falling all over, passing out, because grandpa had $500,000, $1 million in life insurance. So now,
Mm.
yeah, I miss him. He's gone, but I just came up, and then also, so that's kind of how we can grow and create wealth. Now we also need to look at transferring the wealth, and that's where having the will and trust is huge, right? Everyone needs to have a will, and everybody needs to have some type of trust, whether it be revocable, irrevocable. Sit down with a, a, a estate
Yeah.
planner,
All
uh,
Steve.
a state attorney, and figure this out,
Mm.
because what's the point of accumulating all this wealth but it's not structured properly, or it's not able to be transferred from one generation to the next? So that's kind of, we have to look at ways to create, grow, and transfer wealth. And that's what I think, from the budgeting and the savings, that's kind of how you can start to create it, investing in different things like the stock market, life insurance, real estate. That's how you can grow it, and then transferring it from wills and trusts. That's how you can transfer from one generation to the next. So, get with the financial advisor, get with the estate planner and estate attorney, and find out these people, make sure you have a good CPA and accountant that can help you. So
Yeah,
that way,
certified public accountant. Yes, sir.
yeah, so
EPA.
that way
Yeah,
it's almost like a team, right?
it
You need to have
is.
a team of professionals around you that can help you,
Yeah.
create, grow, and transfer wealth.
Okay, Steve, to that now, me being an average person, like I say, inner city person, right, who's dealing with a limited budget as is, that sounds to me like that's a lot of money, man. I got to get a CPA, I got to get an attorney, I mean, how am I going to afford? I mean, I'm not even going to be able to afford all this to even make sure, so, I mean, for me being in that, not having
Yeah.
200,000, 300,000, what have you, to offset that cost, I mean, what could you tell people from that demographic, like how
I
do
would
I
say,
do like that?
the budgeting and savings, that's the thing that doesn't cost anything, right? So let's just focus on that, right? Let's get the savings up. Let's start being more liquid and having 3 to 6 months of money in the bank.
Okay.
From there, going on Investopedia and researching how to invest and all of that, and getting more educated on that, because nowadays it's great to have a financial advisor, but you don't necessarily need one. right, in order to do this stuff. You know, Charles Schwab, TD Ameritrade, all these online brokerage accounts or brokerage firms, you can trade with zero fees and zero commission. So the barriers of entry are as low as it's ever been in order to start investing. So you don't. I think that's a huge misconception that you need to have hundreds of thousands of dollars. You just really have to have that drive that I want to do this. This is a priority for me. And then, just being pointed in the right direction. So if you're making $30,000 a year and you can live on 25 and you can save that 5,000, you might be in a better position than someone who's making 100,000, but they're spending 105, and now they got credit card debt, and now you know what I'm saying. So it really just depends on your mindset and what you're willing to prioritize. So I would say, for the average person who feels like, well, I don't necessarily have the resources, let's just focus on getting a good, strong budget that you can stick to and saving. And then from there, once you have that savings, now let's look at investing.
One final question.
Sure.
How would you mentioned Charles Schwab, those Ameritrade, things of that nature. Where would a lay person not knowing all this, is there anyone you can say who should I go to if I go to the Charles Schwab building, what have you? Who should I ask for? To start that after, with the understanding that I have the savings set up. I took care of the fundamentals first. Who is the point person that I should contact or speak to get the ball rolling in that area?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, they'll have someone there just say, you can go online and say, hey, I want to open up an investment account. And they have representatives there who will help you to get you started. Because, for them, that's new business. So, of course, they're going to love that, So, yeah, I mean, they have brick and mortar locations, and they also have people on the website where that, if you say, hey, I'm new to this, I want to open up a brokerage account, or IRA or Roth IRA account, how can I do this? And they have folks who will help you to walk you through. But, I'm also a resource. I think, that organization, the Quad A, the Association of African American Advisors, I'm sure there's some great folks locally who are passionate about this stuff who would be willing to help people. Do seminars. So that's something I'm willing to do. So if anyone, Kyle has my contact information, so he can make that available. I'm willing to talk to anybody, anytime about this type of thing. I'm very passionate about it. But, I know that. So, yeah, I think that, we just really have to make it a priority, and see that this is like something that you have to handle and not just sit back and kind of be passive about it. Aggressively go after this stuff,
Yes, sir. Thank you, Steve, man. Thank you, brother, for coming in. Like I was telling the family when your phone went out that third time, I said it's because we're doing so much, man. We try to provide like value for the family, man, and that shows that we're doing a lot of stuff in our own personal lives. Like we're not just sitting back and being lazy. Like the reason our phones are going out because we're doing so much. Like, and it's not anything that we're just trying to be busy to be busy. No, this is production. Like this is us pursuing excellence. This is us pursuing achievement. So if we are able to do these things, then what's stopping you? You know what I'm saying? Like what's going on? And it's not to say it's going to be perfect. I mean, his phone shut off 3 times. We started a little bit late, but still must go on. You know what I'm saying? We must proceed. You know what I'm saying? So this is just a way of us showing that despite all these things that are going on with the virus or whatever, we still must push on. So like that's a thing that we need to really have in mind and go forward. And I just want to thank the family for sticking with us. For those who are watching, definitely put your comments down below. Definitely let us know what you thought about it. If you have any questions for us or definitely for Steve, please leave them so that we can go back to him and answer them for you. Definitely put his contact info when we post the video either on Facebook or on YouTube. So family, you know what I'm saying? Just always be mindful. Be safe out there, but be proactive at the same time.
Wash your hands, drink plenty of
water. Wash
your
hands.
Juices.
You know what I'm saying? Don't hoard the toilet paper either. You know what I'm saying? Like, stop hoarding the toilet paper, okay? It's not going anywhere, All right. It's like, you know what I'm saying? What you need to be hoarding is some of those stocks, you know, that he talked about. Some of those people to get on your financial team. That's what you need to be hoarding. You know, there's a lot of different things just going on, but you know, make sure your house is in order, family. You know, try to do your best. Again, subscribe to our channel, Grand Rising Collective on YouTube. Again, please share your comments, likes. Also, leave a shout out. Shout out to Nicole for joining in. Shout out to Stephen for spending his time. Shout out to my bro, Demille Dixon. Shout out to Blackfoot the Poet. Shout out to Miss Toya Slayer, Realtor. Shout out to Jacqueline, Divine Wellness. Shout out. Thank you for watching. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you so much. Don't forget, subscribe, like,
Yes.
share this information. And I get that from Kyle. My sign off is my general sign off. Again, everything that Kyle said, appreciate you. Yeah, share the wealth, share the knowledge. You know, I really can't add any more to what you said, Kyle. So what we touch on, keep in mind, family, if you're here, like Kyle said, he already mentioned about the velvet rope, things like online education, the digital divide we'll talk about as well. Youth are looking, as far as youth and women looking at us as Black men to provide guidance throughout this whole coronavirus type thing, and just in general in life. We'll talk more about that. We'll also talk about groupthink. I shared with Kyle something we talked about earlier in regards to educators dealing with the teen demographic. I also added a closing to the last live feed that I did, by the way, Kyle, on Periscope, in regards to those details on how to deal with stuff like that. Because of the, how can I say, emotional challenge or attack that young people feel, and we as educators how to approach it more strategically through what's called conflict resolution, more practical conflict and effective conflict resolutions, right? I don't know if these topics will still be relevant, but one topic I know definitely will be. We'll be touching on human trafficking. There's a contact of mine in LinkedIn. That's a big thing going on now. We'll touch on that. I'm not sure if this will still be in the news, but Harvey Weinstein was just sentenced to 23 years. We'll see how that works. That plays out, but it's a good precedent set. And then finally, just so you know, some of the topics that Cal and I discussed before was therapists, how it's important as we go through this trauma, we unpack things to help the community grow stronger. You need help. Sometimes you need help. Sometimes parents and friends, you know, they do their best, but sometimes, you know, they may not be able to help in a certain area. So a therapist, a licensed therapist may be more beneficial and helpful. So this app actually connects, provides access to Black therapists in particular who relates from your environment. I saw real quick, I was looking at a video a few weeks ago where this young lady was talking about how she had to go through like 4 therapists because the therapist that she was going through couldn't relate to what she was going through. They were trying to pitch her stuff or the perspective that they came from wasn't from her perspective, so it wasn't conducive or beneficial to her. So sometimes, like you said, Kyle, it's beneficial to have someone who comes from your background, who can relate to you, who can give you more tangible, more realistic approaches to what you're challenging, you know, the challenges are, whatever. So this app kind of touches on that. So these are some of the topics that we'll touch on, family, coming up. So stay tuned.
That's great, man. The app is doing that. So that's an app that's trying to solve a problem in our community. That's dope.
Absolutely, right? And they can connect it on their phone. So even though, like you mentioned, the digital divide, but they don't have a actual connection, you know, in their home, right?
Yeah, home.
They have the phone that they can use that will serve the same purpose, things of that nature.
Right.
So on that note, family, I'm gonna close out.
Ashe. Ashe. All right, peace, family.
Peace, family.
Yeah. Baby, yeah. You don't say ready on this. You know I have patience.